The following program is brought to you by Jack Miller.
It's Down to Business with Jack Miller. Forget what they teach you in school. This is real life, not Wall Street, but Main Street. A real show on what's really involved with starting and running a business, with all the ups and downs. Our guests will answer your questions and provide you with valuable information. Stay tuned and join in the conversation.
You know what? We have a great guest. Let's get Brian on the phone. Let's talk some real estate and what's going on in South Florida. Brian, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey,
great to speak to you.
Brian, great to speak to you. Say hello to our main man, Todd. We're excited that you took time from your busy day today, and I saw it was a busy day because I check your tweets, what's going on, and that's how I know what's going on in South Florida real estate.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yesterday I got my hands on the application for the American Dream Miami Mega Mall, so that spurred some activity on Twitter.
That's a serious project, which actually my first question to you, Brian, because there is so many incredible projects that are either being developed right now or in the process of being developed down here in South Florida. What would you pinpoint as like the number one most important project for South Florida that's going on right now or in the works?
Well, it's interesting when you talk about what's important versus for the economy, and then what might spur interest. I think a lot of the office projects that are being proposed are probably very important for creating high-end jobs. Where opposed to some of the things that might be more fun, like malls and entertainment, they'll create jobs, but not necessarily high-end jobs. So when you look at, Brickell City Center and All Aboard Florida, they're going to include a lot of, office buildings as part of that. And I think if you look at All Aboard Florida's ability to move people from, say, downtown Miami to downtown Fort Lauderdale to West Palm Beach quickly, and then around each of those cities, they're going to have kind of nodes of office buildings and residential. I think that'll have a huge impact. I think the readers are very interested in American Dream Miami just from the entertainment standpoint. Either they hate the traffic or they love the idea of the entertainment.
Right.
But doesn't it all go together? Because a lot of these entertainment projects, they bring tourism, which creates the higher end jobs. You think everything is tied together.
There's definitely a residual effect. There are some high end jobs created from it, but I think that the bulk of the kind of retail projects aren't going to create a huge amount of high-end jobs. Most of the jobs are going to be on the lower scale. So I think that's the thing Florida needs to figure out. We want to be a tech hub, but are we creating the right places for that? And what we're getting to see. I did a story a few weeks ago on the office market, and actually, even though there's about 1.7 million of square feet of office space under construction, which isn't much compared to residential, there's about 5.2 million square feet of office space that's in the pipeline. So it's been approved or it's seeking approval. So there's a lot more coming, and that's good news for people who are looking for higher wage jobs.
Brian, it seems that there's so much activity in Florida and to the extremes. I think it was yesterday or the day before, you wrote two opposite articles. One was about a developer who filed for Chapter 11 with about $39 million in debt. The other was the Boca Regency Commons that sold for a terrific $80 million.
It's a big deal.
Crazy price. So it seems like in South Florida, as opposed to a lot of other big cities, that we have the extremes. We have the people who are crashing and burning and the people who are paying crazy low cap rates. And I want to talk, we have to break for a commercial in 30 seconds, but maybe you could think about it. Is the two extremes good for the economy, and is it good for opportunity? Because it gives, when you have the inefficiencies of the market, it creates opportunities for people. So with that, hold on, and we got to break for a commercial. We're back in 2 minutes. Then we'll get your answer, Brian.
All right.
Thank you.
Don't turn that dial. We'll be right back.
Turn it around. Do you need long-term real estate financing? Gelb Financial is located right here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and provides 30-year terms with no balloon payment whatsoever on non-owner-occupied residential and commercial.
Hello, this is Jack Miller and Todd Cohen here with you again with Brian Bandell of the South Florida Business Journal. Brian, thanks for sticking with us. Now let's back to the question. Again, I'll rephrase it in case someone just tuned in. It seems in South Florida we have so many extremes and so much development that you have some people losing a fortune and some people making a fortune. And
that's right.
No, go on. I want to hear your thoughts on it.
And I feel that it's because South Florida is the land of, of optimism, pervasive optimism. Everyone kind of believes the ground is golden at some point, believes they can't lose. So because of that, people will come up with amazing, ambitious ideas. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Also, sometimes people will have, unrealistic expectations, and maybe they'll hold something when they should sell. They should have cashed out, and yet they'll hold and try and build something, crazy. I mean, we've heard a lot about all kinds of plans, where they've tried to build things. The casino on the Miami Herald site by Genting is one of the examples of things, they've been proposed to build and didn't, apparently isn't happening. So I think sometimes you have people who try, some people were victims of the recession, but when you look at the people in foreclosure now, it's like some of these people just had ideas that didn't work out, or they were victims of tenants leaving, or the deals they made during the boom were just so, the numbers were so bad that it's coming back to haunt them now.
So the question is, how much of what's being done today you think it'll come back to haunt these guys in 5 years?
Well, today's a little different because there's not as much aggressive financing. The condos of today are being built with mostly deposits for cash, and the construction loans are a lower part of that. So I'd say most of the time when a developer breaks ground on a condo, he has the funding, and generally they're breaking ground on for residential and for retail with like apartments and rentals. They generally do so expecting to fill up pretty quickly. I guess there might be some bit of a risk in the retail if you think you're going to get a lot of tenants and your pre-leasing doesn't work, or say you land a lot of tenants but they go out of business after a few years. So if you're building a really large shopping center, you better have deep pockets to say, this might take a couple years to be stable. It's not going to be a moneymaker for me in year one. And then the other area where there's risks is, neighborhoods where they're paying more than what it's cash flowing now. For instance, Wynwood, if you buy something at 1,000 square foot in Wynwood, which is happening, it's not going to cash flow now based on rent. You're kind of hoping it'll be there at some point. So you're taking a bit of a risk when you do that. It might pay off and it might not. We'll have to find out after a few years.
So what do you think of what's going on? I'll just pick Brickell, for example. I don't know if you mentioned it or Todd mentioned it, but I heard it a few minutes ago. They're just building and building and building there. Is there enough demand and infrastructure to meet the new construction?
Well, infrastructure, probably not in terms of traffic. I mean, we've basically accepted that traffic is bad, and we're basically ignoring roads are congested, and if anything, they're saying, well, build less parking, encourage people to walk, encourage people to get out of roads. You need to live here near where you work, but, oh, by the way, everything we're building is extremely expensive and requires, 50% cash,
Yeah, well, that's what's happening in Brickell.
Kind of a mixed message there, but I think there's demand for people to be there, but will the price point, match the ability of people who want to live there? That's the question. And the first wave of condos did, and the first wave of rentals did. I'm not sure if this current wave will be at enough of a price point. We'll have to see, because when it's one thing when you're selling a condo at 400 square foot and then rent it, but then when you're selling a condo at 800 square foot and you try and rent it, it's a lot harder.
Yeah, it seems that a lot of these condos have tremendous negative cash flow from an investment point of view. Or if you don't leverage them, just super low cap rates to no cap rates, because usually the condo fees and the taxes eat it up. Yeah,
I mean, some of these condos have $1 per square foot condo fees. So we're talking about $800 a month on an 800 square foot unit. That's a lot of what you're going to charge in rent right there, just going to the condo fees, and then plus the taxes on it. So that definitely adds up.
So do you think values will keep going up, or do you think they're going to stabilize a little bit?
I think it depends on the exact market. I think it's going to be hard for it to keep going up for markets like Brickell and downtown. It might still go up on the extreme high-end market, where, the kind of Miami Beach $1 million type unit market. But I think that the test will be, once these new units come online, how quickly will these investors be able to rent them? And if they see that rentals aren't working extremely well in these the buildings there, then that might lower pricing pressure, Because right now the problem is the cost of construction is going up so high, it's hard for them to sell them for a lower number. So they need to work all that out, because if you look at the new buildings on Brickell, the ones that have been built since 2012, most of them have more than half of those units being rented.
So when you mean individual, or people are buying the condos and renting the condos out?
Yeah, like if you looked at, I worked with Condo Vultures and got the numbers on them. Like if you looked at some of the new buildings that were completed, like 70% of the units are now being rented by the investor owners.
Gotcha.
A lot of those buildings. It's the majority in most of them. So I mean, they're condos, but really they're glorified apartment buildings.
So
except individual owners instead of one owner.
I understand. So the guy who's buying them, the investor, is he leveraging up? Is he getting like a 75 LTV, or is he buying them all cash and it really doesn't matter?
Usually they buy it all cash initially, and then they try and get some financing. But again, the banks are being conservative on the financing. So you might be able to get 50% loan to value, something like that. The tough part is that if you're a resident and you want to buy a condo like you would buy a house, with your 20% down with a Fannie Mae, or maybe an FHA loan with like 3% down, it's almost impossible to do that because very few condos have approval from the FHA and from Fannie Mae. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of an issue on the resale market. If I, as an individual, wanted to buy it, I can't do one of those. It's going to be a lot harder for me to get a loan without putting 40%, 50% down to buy an existing one in some of these buildings. And that's a lot tougher to find a bank to finance it at 20% down without Fannie Mae backing it up.
Gotcha.
So, Brian, if you had a bunch of money right now in the Miami market, what type of asset class titillates you most? What are you most interested in?
I think in South Florida, single-family homes are going to be a pretty good investment because it's hard to build more of them. Condos you could always build more, but single-family homes, they require a lot more space. So I think those will be a good value for people who want to invest in them, as long as they can maintain them and they're in good enough areas. I think a lot of people say that retail is going really well. So I definitely think retail in a good area has been proven to be a good investment. But again, it's not easy because retail it's a little harder sometimes to get the right tenant for retail. So if you do it, you have to work with a smart broker and understand realistically what your options are, who might go there. I
am that smart broker. I focus on retail properties down here, and your last deal write-up was on the University Commons deal that Regency just bought in Boca, Jack's hometown, and that brought me to thinking, how do you screen and pick the deals that you write about? I mean, there's so many deals happening down here, especially at a time like this. How do you pick the deals that you actually give your feature to?
I'm generally looking for transactions over $10 million. So either a sale of over $10 million or a construction loan of over $10 million. I might go lower than that if there's a notable person involved. Say there's, Miami Dolphins, defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh buys a house for $6.5 million. I'll write about that because of who the buyer is, Or I also try and focus a lot on development proposals. What is in the pipeline? What application has been filed to build something? So you'll see a lot of stories on me about, apartment complex planned somewhere in Miami, hospital expansion planned in Pembroke Pines, that kind of stuff. I'm trying to get to these applications before you see the crane come up next to you and you wonder, what are they building there? Hopefully I'll be able to tell you first. And if you have an issue with it, go right to your city or county commissioner and tell them.
Right.
Brian, I have a question for you. Are you a reporter first, or are you kind of a real estate guy who reports? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because it seems you have such a wealth of knowledge of real estate. You're like unbelievable. You know everything that's going on.
I mean, I'm a writer first. I'm a writer of journalism. I'm a writer of novels. That's what I like to do. And when I immerse myself in a subject, I try and learn everything I can about it. I was the banking reporter, and I learned a lot about banking for a long time. And people are saying, you should be a banking consultant. You know so much. So I just try, master my subject as a journalist.
That's pretty cool. Very cool.
In terms of the novels, I mean, did you always want to write novels, or is that something that sort of came over you while you were doing the other writing and just sort of caught the bug and wanted to do it? Or?
Well, I mean, I started in elementary school. I had this notebook, and I was writing like a swords and fantasy type novel in my notebook. I was like in 5th grade, and the only problem is I wrote it in pencil, so it kind of fades over time. Don't write your novel in pencil, kids. That's not the way to do it.
Great rule of life right there.
They don't teach you that in school. Yeah.
Right. I don't think kids use pencils
at
anymore.
University of Miami, I started getting ideas for novels, and I kept working at it. And the 4th book I finished was the first one I got a publishing deal with. I came out with the novel Mute in about 2012. That was a novel about a series of murders going on in Florida where the only witness was a girl who was mute, sort of like an X-Files type story. And then this year I came out with Famous After Death, which is a thriller about murder gone viral.
Pretty cool stuff. How long does it take you to write a novel? Out of curiosity.
Well, Famous After Death, I actually started it in 2012, and it probably took me about a year and a half to get the first draft done, and then it took me about another year or so to do the editing and going back and forth with the publisher to get it out and perfect it and get on the schedule. So yeah, it definitely takes a lot of time to make it, but during that time, that process, you learn about yourself, you learn about the subject, and it makes the story ultimately better, even though it takes a while.
Was it hard when you started the process? Was it hard to pick a publisher, or did you self-publish it? And because I know self-publishing is like a big thing now.
I got a publisher, Silverleaf Books. They're a small press. And so they published it for me. I didn't have to front capital up for self-publishing. So they've helped me along in this process, but obviously all authors now, whether you're with a small or big publisher, you have to do a number of things yourself in terms of, working with events and reaching out to the media and publicity and interviews. So, the bigger publishers sometimes have more of a machine behind you, but no matter what, you have to be self-motivated as an author, sort of like your own entrepreneur.
But Brian, we have to take a commercial break or a traffic break in a minute. But I have to tell you, if anyone gets the opportunity, Google Brian Bandell, and you'll see you look like you're having a lot of fun promoting this book. Because I saw a bunch of pictures of you at local bookstores, and you look like you're having a ball.
Yeah, I was at Books and Books for a signing. We had a really great event there. And the novel Famous After Death is still at Books and Books. And if you want to catch me in Delray Beach, I'll be at Murder on the Beach on October 7th. And I'll be at the Miami Book Fair at Miami-Dade College on November 22nd, the Sunday of the book fair. So
it's a great
I'll be really happy
fair.
to see everybody. If you're interested in the impacts of social media violence and how the violence on social media plays out in the real world, check out Famous After Death.
Brian, I want to talk more about that. Definitely stick with us for another 3 minutes, and we'll be back